Hey guys, Jaywalkers50 here. Welcome back to the channel. Tonight's story is one that still gives me chills every time I think about it. It was sent in by a guy who only wanted to be called Alex. He swore every word was true, and after reading what happened to him, I believe him. This one's about the dark web, cursed objects, and something that should have never left whatever hell it came from. A Dybbuk box. It started the way a lot of these stories do, boredom and curiosity. Alex was 27, worked remote tech support, and spent most nights alone in his apartment scrolling through the usual corners of the internet. He'd always been into the paranormal, ghost videos, true horror stories. Yeah, he was a subscriber. Creepy pasta marathons. One night, deep into a rabbit hole about cursed items, he kept seeing mentions of the dark web. Not the usual drugs and gun stuff, the other part. The one where people sold things that shouldn't be sold. He made a Tor browser, set up the necessary precautions, and started looking. Most listings were scams or edgy roleplay garbage. Then he found it. The title was simple: Authentic 19th Century Dybbuk Box. Active. Serious buyers only. The description was unnerving even by dark web standards. The seller claimed it came from a private collection in Krakow. The box had belonged to a rabbi who tried to contain a particularly vicious Dybbuk, the spirit of a man executed for murdering his own family in 1847. The seller included photos, an old wooden box, small, maybe the size of a cigar box, covered in Hebrew lettering burned into the surface. The lock looked ancient. Inside, supposedly, were 2 locks of hair, a dried rose, and a silver coin. The seller wrote, "It has been opened twice in the last decade. Both previous owners are deceased. I will not answer questions about how I came to possess it. Payment in Monero only. No refunds, no returns. Delivery through blind drop." Alex knew he should have closed the tab. Instead, he messaged the seller. The conversation was short. The seller asked only one question. "Do you understand what you're inviting into your home?" Alex replied that he did. 2 days later, he sent the crypto. 3 days after that, a plain brown package with no return address showed up at his apartment door. No postage, just sitting there. Inside was the box. It was heavier than it looked. The wood was cold, almost unnaturally so. The Hebrew letters seemed to shift when he stared at them too long. He told himself it was just the lighting. That first night he left it on his coffee table and went to bed excited, like a kid who just bought a haunted doll from an antique store. The dream started immediately. He was in an old European house. A man with a twisted, blackened face stood in the corner of the room, smiling with too many teeth. The man whispered in what sounded like Yiddish, mixed with something guttural. Alex couldn't understand the words, but he felt the meaning. "You opened the door." He woke up drenched in sweat at 3:33 a.m. His apartment smelled like old flowers and something metallic. He brushed it off his nerves. The next few days, things got off. His cat, Mochi, who normally slept on his bed, started avoiding the living room entirely. She'd sit at the hallway entrance and hiss at the box for hours. Alex caught his reflection in the mirror one morning and swore. For a split second, his eyes looked darker than usual. He laughed it off. Then the whispers began. At first, he thought it was the neighbors through the wall, but the voice was inside the apartment, always when he was alone. It sounded like an old man speaking just behind his shoulder. He'd spin around and find nothing. One night, he recorded audio on his phone while he slept. In the morning, he played it back. under his own snoring, there was a dry, raspy voice repeating the same phrase over and over in broken English. My family. Now your family. Alex started researching how to seal a Dybbuk box. Salt, holy water, prayers he didn't believe in. He tried everything. Nothing worked. The box wouldn't stay closed anymore. No matter how many times he locked it, he'd wake up to find the lid open a crack, as if something inside was testing its strength. Then came the worst part. His friends started noticing changes. He became irritable, paranoid. He'd snap at people for no reason. One night, his best friend Jake came over to check on him. They were playing video games when Jake suddenly went quiet. Bro, why are you smiling like that? Alex hadn't realized he was smiling. He looked at the reflection in the TV screen. His face was stretched into a grin that didn't feel like his own. His eyes looked wrong, too dark, too focused. That same night, after Jake left, Alex blacked out. He woke up on the kitchen floor at 4:17 a.m. Every cabinet was open. All the knives were lined up perfectly on the counter, handles facing the same direction. On the wall, written in what looked like dried blood, but turned out to be red wine from a bottle he didn't remember opening, were the words in shaky Hebrew that later translated to, "She is next." Alex didn't have a girlfriend, but he did have a little sister, Sarah, who was supposed to visit him that weekend. He called her at 5 a.m. in a panic and begged her not to come. She thought he was having a mental breakdown. She came anyway. The final night. Sarah arrived around 7 p.m. Alex had duct-taped the Dybbuk box shut and shoved it into the back of his closet. They ordered pizza, watched movies, tried to act normal. Around 2 a.m., Sarah went to the bathroom. Alex stayed on the couch. He heard her scream. He ran to the bathroom and found her standing in front of the mirror, pale as death. She said she saw someone standing behind her, an old man with a burned face, smiling. But when she turned around, no one was there. They both heard the sound at the same time, a slow, deliberate scratching coming from inside the closet. Alex grabbed a hammer. He ripped the closet door open. The duct tape was shredded. The box was wide open. Inside, the silver coin was gone. The dried rose was fresh and bleeding red petals, and the 2 locks of hair had been joined by a third. Long, dark hair that looked exactly like Sarah's. The lights flickered. The temperature dropped so fast Alex could see his breath. The whispering returned, but now it was loud, layered, like dozens of voices speaking at once. And underneath them all, the dry, old voice laughed. Alex grabbed the box, ran outside in his bare feet, and threw it into the dumpster behind the building. He and Sarah packed her things and left the apartment that same night. He stayed at her place for a week. When he finally worked up the courage to go back, the box was sitting on his coffee table again, lid open, waiting. The seller's final message on the dark web account, sent 2 days after Alex threw the box away, read, "It doesn't like being thrown away. You should be more respectful to family." Alex ended his message to me with this, "I don't know what to do. I've tried selling it, burning it, burying it. It always comes back. And every night the dreams get worse. I'm starting to forget what my own face looks like in the mirror. If you're reading this, please tell people. Some doors on the dark web don't just open. They open both ways." Damn. That one got to me. If you ever come across a listing like that, no matter how curious you are, close the tab. Some things aren't meant to be collected. If you're watching this late at night, make sure your doors are locked. And maybe check on any old boxes you've got lying around. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay safe out there. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Jaywalkers 50 here, and tonight we've got a story that still gives me chills every time I read it. This one comes from a listener who swears it happened to his cousin's friend group last year. A group of friends chasing a thrill on the dark web and finding something that doesn't let you log off. Grab your headphones, turn the lights down, low, and let's get into it. It started, like so many bad decisions do, with a late-night scroll. Jake was the tech guy in the group, the one who always had Tor installed and bragged about knowing where to find the real internet. He, his girlfriend Mia, and their friends had been looking for something different for date night, not another dinner and movie, something that would get the blood pumping. Alex and Sarah had been together 6 months and were still in that honeymoon phase where everything felt like an adventure. Ben and Emily were more the adventurous type already, hiking, skydiving, the works. Then there was Riley, the single friend who tagged along to keep the numbers even. 6 people total, all in their mid-20s, all convinced they were too smart to fall for anything truly dangerous. Jake found the ad buried on a dark web forum that specialized in extreme experiences. The post was simple, almost too clean. The ultimate horror escape room, one night. No cameras, no rules, real fear. $500 per person, invitation only. Those who complete it never forget. Those who don't, never leave. There were no pictures, no reviews, just coordinates, a date 2 weeks away, and a single line. Tell no one outside your group. Bring nothing but yourselves. The group laughed about it at first. This is probably some rich guy's basement with jump scares, Ben said. But the price and the secrecy hooked them. Jake dug deeper. The forum users who had supposedly gone before spoke in vague, almost reverent terms. Worth every penny. Changed how I see fear. One user simply posted, "Still running?" They pooled the money and sent the Bitcoin. A reply came back within minutes, with exact directions to an abandoned psychiatric hospital 2 hours outside the city. The email warned them, "The game begins the moment you step inside. There is no safe word." On the night of the event, the 6 of them piled into 2 cars, blasting music and joking to hide the growing nerves. Sarah squeezed Alex's hand in the passenger seat. "This is going to be so fun," she whispered. He smiled, but his stomach was already twisting. The hospital loomed at the end of a cracked driveway lined with dead trees. No lights except for a single red bulb above a rusted metal door. A man in a black hoodie waited outside. No mask, no theatrics, just cold, empty eyes. He collected their phones in a sealed bag, took their cash, and handed each of them a small flashlight. "Rules are simple," he said in a flat voice. "Find the exit before dawn. Everything inside is part of the game. Good luck." Then he locked the door behind them. At first, it felt like a high-end haunted house. The entrance hall was dimly lit by flickering fluorescent bulbs. Old medical equipment sat covered in dust. Faint recordings of distant screams played on loop. The group stuck together, laughing nervously as they solved the first few puzzles, matching patient files to locked drawers, deciphering bloody messages on the walls. "See, this is awesome," Jake said, kissing Mia quickly. They found a hidden key inside a mannequin that looked way too realistic, its skin cold and rubbery. But around the 40-minute mark, things shifted. They entered a long corridor lined with padded cells. The lights here were motion-activated, turning on one by one as they walked. Riley was in the back, still cracking jokes, when the lights suddenly went out entirely. A wet, dragging sound came from behind them. "Guys, quit it!" Riley called. No one was joking. When the lights flickered back on, Riley was gone. Just gone. His flashlight lay on the floor, still rolling slightly. A smear of something dark led into one of the open cells. "Riley!" they shouted. Echoes answered them. Panic set in, but they told themselves it was part of the act. Actors, hidden doors, classic escape room stuff. They pressed on, voices quieter now. The next room was a mock operating theater. Surgical tools gleamed under harsh lights. A note on the table read, "Remove what doesn't belong." On the operating table lay a realistic dummy with a small locked box inside its chest cavity. Ben, trying to stay brave for Emily, reached in. His hand came out covered in thick, warm liquid that definitely wasn't corn syrup. The box contained a combination, but the dummy had a pulse. Faint, but there. Emily gagged. "I want to leave." They found the next clue and ran. Deeper into the building, the temperature dropped. The walls seemed to breathe. Subtle shifts in the wallpaper, like something lived behind them. They heard Riley's voice faintly through the vents, screaming for help, then cutting off with a wet gurgle. Sarah started crying. Alex held her close, but his own hands were shaking. Jake kept saying it was all fake, that they'd signed up for this. But even he jumped at every creak. In the basement level, they discovered the truth wasn't just jump scares. They found the first body. It wasn't an actor. A man in his 30s, throat cut ear to ear, propped up in a wheelchair with a sign around his neck. Failed to escape. His eyes were still open. Fresh. That's when the real game began. The lights went out completely. Footsteps, many of them, echoed from multiple directions. The group scattered despite their attempts to stay together. Mia was pulled screaming into a side room. Jake lunged after her, but was met by a figure in a stained doctor's coat. The man, if it was a man, moved wrong, joints bending too far. Jake barely escaped, sprinting blindly down a hallway that shouldn't have been there. Ben and Emily found a hidden elevator. Inside, bloody handprints covered the walls. As the doors closed, they saw Alex and Sarah running toward them, but the elevator descended before they could reach it. Ben and Emily emerged in what looked like an old morgue. Drawers lined the walls. Most were empty. Some weren't. They heard their friends' voices calling from inside the closed drawers, pleading, crying, then screaming as something dragged them away. Emily broke down. Ben tried to pry a drawer open and found Mia inside, barely conscious, whispering, "They're not human." They watched the dark web ad too. Upstairs, Alex and Sarah had barricaded themselves in an old office. Through a crack in the door, they watched one of the actors peel off its face. Not a mask, but something that came away like wet paper, revealing something pale and eyeless underneath. It sniffed the air, then looked directly at their hiding spot. Sarah screamed. They ran again. The final room was the cafeteria, set up like a twisted viewing gallery. Old televisions lined the walls, each playing footage from hidden cameras. They saw Riley being strapped to a table. Saw Jake dragged by his ankles. Saw Ben and Emily cornered in the morgue. And on the largest screen, a live feed. Alex and Sarah, breathing hard, watching themselves on camera. A calm voice came over hidden speakers, the same voice from the initial email. "Congratulations, you've reached the end. Only 2 remain." But the game was never about escaping the building. The floor beneath them gave way. They fell into a pit filled with old restraints, and the smell of rust and rot. Dozens of previous players had been here. Some still moved weakly. The last thing Sarah saw was Alex being pulled away by too many hands, his screams echoing as something whispered in his ear. Only one person made it out. Jake woke up in a ditch 2 miles from the hospital at sunrise, covered in blood that wasn't all his own. His phone was returned to him in a plastic bag, along with a note. "Tell the story. Bring more friends. The room is always hungry." He tried to go to the police. The coordinates led to nothing. An empty field. The dark web ad was gone. Forum threads about the experience had been wiped. Jake still has nightmares. He says sometimes late at night, he gets new messages, invitations, personalized. And sometimes, when he checks the Tor browser, he sees the ad again, with his own face in the description. Damn, that one's rough, guys. If you or anyone you know has ever messed around with those kinds of exclusive dark web experiences, drop a comment. Have you ever found something that felt too real? Let me know. Stay safe out there. Some doors aren't meant to be opened. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Sweet dreams.